We are starting our first webinar with JetBrains. It's TVG JetBrains webinar. And today we will talk about JetBrains new product. My name is Roman Lesnikov. I am from TVG. Second speaker and main guest here is Martin. And he will be talking about space. It's an interesting name. And the space product is very, very important in our near future and life because it offers lots of possibilities when we do our work. So please prepare your coffees, prepare your tea, and we will start shortly. Martin, I will cancel now my presentation. Now I'm giving opportunity to talk to you.
All right, thank you very much. So do we start immediately?
You can just introduce yourself. You can talk about yourself, of who are you and what you are doing.
All right, yeah, so I'm Martin, and I work at JetBrains as a developer advocate for all of our .NET IDEs, but also for JetBrains Space. So that means writing documentation, building samples, doing presentations like these, and giving feedback to the team and so on what people are missing, how people are using the product. So this is a good opportunity if you have questions after the webinar to ask them, so I can pass them on to the team and see if we can make them actionable.
Okay, it's now let's start. Maybe you can tell us about the space product. What is it and what it gives us, what we can do with the space product, and when, how these ideas came to make such product.
Absolutely. So a lot of the products that we have at JetBrains come from our own needs. So we built our IDE because that was our first product, but then all of the other features in the IDEs came about because we were using our own product and we needed them to build better software, et cetera, et cetera. And space is nothing different. I think when we were growing past 600 people, and we now have 1,600 people in the company, we needed a way to easily communicate with one another, to have a central place where we could store our source codes, where we could upload issues, where we could do CI/CD, and that's how we started building Space. First of all, as a very basic way of spreading news in the company. So if some team built some new feature that everyone should be aware of, then Space could be used to write a blog post internally and spread that news to the entire company. But then we kept adding new features because more and more people started using Space. And in the end, yeah, Space is the product that we now released for everyone to use. So the general idea of what you can do with Space is that it is your one-stop system to store everything around your organization. So it starts with people. Everyone has an account. Everyone in the company can log into to JetBrains Space. Then all of those people can be grouped into teams. So you can be a manager of a team, you can be a member of a team can be a sub-team of another team, etc. So there's an entire team directory in there as well. We have a meeting calendar in there. So you can organize meetings. You can also organize absences. So if you're on vacation or you're on a business trip, you can enter that in the system and everyone in the system will see that you're on vacation or out of office and so on. And that comes in very handy if you start collaborating with people. So if you start using the chats, for example, or you're writing a code review and you want to tag someone on there to have a second pair of eyes on the code that you just wrote, you can invite people, but of course, if you invite a person and you immediately see that they are on vacation, then you know that you probably need to find someone else in that specific team. Similarly, if you book a meeting, the fact that we have information about who is in which office, in which part of the office, we know which meeting room is going to be closest to them. So if you book a meeting through Space, Space will automatically suggest the meeting room that is most convenient for all of the participants that are in there. So that is there, generally around people and working together and chatting and having meetings and so on. But there's also stuff for software developers. So as I mentioned, Space comes from our own needs. So we have source control in there. You can have Git repositories. You can browse them, you can clone them, you can write code and so on. You can then have code reviews where other people look at the code you just wrote to give feedback, to maybe get improvements, and essentially have a second pair of eyes so that you're not committing additional bugs that could have been easily caught by someone else looking at your codes. There's issue tracking, there's issue boards. We have documents in there as well. So it is for software developers, but a lot of the tools can also be used by other teams that are in the company. So if you are working on a project, and we'll see that during the demo later on as well, you can work with documents. You can create documents that have meeting notes, that have technical architecture documentation. If you just want to write something that you're working on as a salesperson or a marketing person, that's possible as well. So you can use all those features, work together, share them with people, publish them on the blog, or just keep them private, depending on what you want. Again, an entire repository where everyone can work together and everyone can get all of the information for collaborating more efficiently.
So the whole team, you say that the Space product is not only for developers, but it is possibility to integrate to other parts of our daily work. So other people who work with us, they can also use the Space, also sales team and marketing team and all others. So this is a great possibility. So not only for developers, but for others too.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you will see during a demo as well, since it comes from our own needs. Of course, the one vertical, so to speak, that is best developed right now is the software developer role. So you will see lots of features around that, but we are adding more and more features for all of the other roles that may be in your organization. And of course, there's a way to integrate with it as well. If you're using existing tools and you don't want to switch to Space for a particular part of your day-to-day workflow, then you can build an integration and just keep on using that tool as well.
I have a question, if I use already some JetBrains products, some development tools, how they integrate to Space?
So it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you want to start working on source codes, Space has Git hosting and it's just traditional Gits. So if you have a command line tool, if you're using GitHub for Windows, for example, or one of our IDEs or one of our competing IDEs, you can just clone and it's standard Git, so it will just work. Same thing with package repositories that we have, for example, if you're making use of Docker or Kubernetes and you want to store your Docker images on Space, all of that is just standard Docker protocol, so it will just work. The only thing that changes is the URL that you use to configure your tool.
Great. You mentioned about calendar and possibilities when people are on vacation. Usually it's a total mess, even in the summer. So someone goes to the vacation and you just came back from vacation and you don't understand who is in the place, who is working, whom you can communicate, who is receiving emails, who is not reading. So you're saying that there is possibility to check all these people in the place who are at work and who are on vacation.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you had absences, of course, if there's details, for example, if you are on sick leave or something like that, other people will only see sick leave and not anything specific, but they will know that you're not in the office and not available. You can look at that information from a profile page in Space, so you'll be able to see that specific person is not available, for example. But also, if you're working with very closely together with different teams, you can favorite those teams in Space, and you can immediately get an overview of everyone in that team who is available, who is not available, and so on. Now, absences are always full days or half days. You can have a half day sick leave, for example, or half a day of vacation. All of that is configurable. There can be managers who approve that and so on. But what's also interesting is that Space has the concept of working hours. And I know a lot of other tools have that concept as well, where if you schedule a meeting, you can immediately see this person is not available at that time because they are not at work at 7 a.m., for example. But what you can do is if for some reason you're at a conference or you're going somewhere where your working hours change, you don't have to update this permanently. You can essentially overwrite your standard working hours and say, okay, from from the 8th of April until the 10th of April, I'll be in a different time zone and I'll be working from 11 a.m. till 6 p.m., for example. You can specify that, and also Space will make that very visible to everyone who is in the company.
Okay. I'm eager to check all the possibilities that Space is offering. Can you share some demo for us?
Absolutely. Let's go for that. So I will share my screen, and then we'll dive in immediately. Here we go. All right, there we are. I guess you can see, right? Okay, let's go for it. So during the demo, by the way, I will have 2 browser windows available. There's this one with the light theme, light browser. So this is one person, which is going to be me, Martin, but with a different profile picture. There's also going to be a separate person that I'll be using during the demos in a dark browser with a dark theme. So you can clearly see that I'm working as a different person now in the Space Demo organization here. And like Roman mentioned, if there's any questions, feel free to post them in the chat and we'll handle them whenever they come up. All right, let's start with it. So this is Space. This is, of course, not the first thing that you will see if you sign up for Space. So you can sign up through Space through TVG, for example, and they will set up your organization. But once you have an account in Space, this is what you will see. This is your personal dashboard or homepage that contains all of the information that is relevant to you. So first thing that you will see is that there's meetings for today. So a small widget of what is happening. So there's a Space webinar going on right now. There's a daily stand-up at some point. I can look at the next days. I have a very boring agenda, but this is good. Less meetings is always nice. But you can see everything that is there. Now, of course, this is just a small widget to give you at a glance information about what is happening, for example, today or tomorrow. If you want full calendar, you can always go there as well and just look at your full calendar by week, by month, by day, etc. We'll look at that at a later point, but just to give you an idea. Also on the homepage are your followed members and teams. And as we were mentioning during the questions before, you can follow members and teams. So if you work closely together with certain people or with certain teams, and my team is there as well, the software development team, you will see immediately who is available and who is not available. So you'll see from the people that I follow, everyone is at work and everyone is available. From the software development team, we can see Aryan here is unavailable. So I can click that and see that Aryan is unavailable for today and tomorrow, apparently. Or I can go to the entire team calendar, and just like we mentioned, you can see whoever is available or not available, who can I talk to for a certain thing in the software development team, and go through there. I can look at that for the coming months as well. So you'll see there's some holidays and vacations that are probably planned. So you can easily see at a glance who is around at a certain time. Back to the homepage, there's some other information there. Favorite projects, I'll probably dive into that as the first thing very soon. There's also code reviews. If I'm a software developer, I can see this in my homepage that I have some work to do and I have to look at the code of some of my colleagues and give some feedback on that. And there's also the recent blog posts, the information that is shared in the company. Now, I mentioned this is a personal homepage. So that means all of the information you see here is personal to you as a user. And that also means that these blog posts are going to be personalized. The more information you put in Space, the more value you will get out of it. So if you have your different office locations in there, if you have team information in there, it's easy to target blog posts to a specific team or to a specific location. So for example, this new Mars office just opened is a blog post that will go to the entire company, for example. But this piece of cake is going to be a blog post that says to the people in one specific office that it's been a while since there was cake and someone will bring cake and you can go to the cafeteria to have some cake there as well. So if you have fire drills, for example, in a specific office, you can write a blog post about that, notify everyone in that specific office, but don't bother anyone else. Because they don't want to know, or they should not know about the fire drill in an office that they are not located in. Let's look at projects now. I mentioned these are favorite projects. So typically those are going to be the project you work on or the project you just want to have quick access to from the homepage here. You'll also see that this, this Ktor logo here is visible on the left-hand sidebar. This sidebar is configurable, and all of the features in Space and all of the projects that you are following can be added or removed from that sidebar depending on what modules you typically work with. So for example, if you are not a developer and you don't want to integrate with Space, maybe the HTTP API playground is something you don't want in that sidebar, so you can remove and add that and so on. If you want to add your projects, you can do so as well or remove them. It's really customizable to make it easy for you to figure out where to go and what to work with. Now let's look at one of the projects that are there. So Ktor.io. Projects and teams in Space are separate concepts. So it's not that the software development team, for example, will have one project. You can have multiple projects for one team. Multiple teams can be part of a project. So if it's something that software development, but also a certain business unit is working on together, they can all be part of that project. So everyone can see what the status is, what issues are there, log issues, look at what is going on essentially. You can add teams and members as well. So if you have the entire software development team, in this case, working on this project, but also several other people, you can add them into a project as well. I'm not going to drill into the administration, but keep in mind that projects by default are visible to everyone inside your organization. But of course, you can customize that as well. If you want projects to be private or only visible to certain people, you can always configure that. There's roles, there's groups, whatever you expect there is there for you to use to customize things. For projects and also for teams and lots of other places in Space, it is possible to give a description about things. So Ktor, this project is a framework for building servers and blah, blah, blah. The idea is that every project and every team can have a description about what they do and why they are there. And that also makes it easy for people in your organization to figure out what they do. So for example, if I go to the software development team here, you will see that this is a team that creates all the software and so on. And every team can essentially have a description of what they do and what you can contact them for and how you can work together with them. Back to our project. Our project also has a homepage with, in this case, code reviews, issues, checklists, and favorite repositories. This is really a software development project, but and I'll dive into those features as well. But let's maybe first go through the features that can be used by other people in the organization as well. So as I mentioned, projects can have documents, and documents are something that every team in the company will probably be using at some point. Documents can be ordered in folders, and in every folder you can have documents that have rich markdown or rich editing support. You can edit them. You can switch to markdown as well. So if you're a power user, so to speak, and you want to write directly in markdown language, you can do as well. Or you can just use the visual editor here and make things bold or remove them, make them italic, add images. All of that is there. What's interesting is that all of the documents, when you're editing them, they are editable by multiple people at the same time. So if I switch to my other user here and go to that same URL or the same documents, and she would start editing this document, you will see that multiple people are editing at the same time. So you can see that Martin is also editing this thing, and you can see the person there as well, or start chatting about what is going on in this particular document as well. Documents can be copied. They can also be set as introduction. So you'll see in meetings, for example, we set one document as the introduction so that your folder of documents can also have a little bit of a description about what is there, why people should care about what is in this folder and what they can find there. Documents can also be published as blog posts. So if you are writing on some technical documentation, for example, or if you have some meeting notes that everyone should be aware of, you can store them inside of your project, but you can also publish them as a blog post later on. And it's essentially the same document that is then reused as a blog post so that it's broadcast to the people in your organization. I'm going to make a quick sidestep here. You'll see in documents that there's this lightning bolt icon. You will see that in a lot of places in Space. You'll see that with issues. You'll see that in chats and so on. The idea is that Space is meant to collaborate with other people. But the idea is also that Space serves to be your one place of truth, your one central authority of where you are working. And you'll see that on the left here, there's also that lightning bolt icon. The lightning bolt is the to-do list in Space. And in your to-do list, you can add items like present webinar. I can complete them. I can postpone them until tomorrow or to the next 2 weeks and so on. I can schedule some time for them as well, which might be interesting if you have something that you have to work on and you want to block something in your agenda. You can do that from your to-do lists. But what I wanted to mention is that documents can be added to to-do lists. Chat messages can be added to to-do lists. All of these things are really meant to make it easy for you to figure out what your workday is going to look like. And I now added code reviews to my to-do, and you'll see that this document is now part of my to-do, and I should be working on that at some point today. Also in the to-do list, by the way, you'll see your daily schedule, so you don't have to click away or go to the calendar or to your homepage. Just open the to-do list and you'll see what you can work on. All right, let's look at a couple of other things. So I'll cover software development in a bit, but let's first go over a couple of other things that other people in the company may be using. Space has the concept of checklists. So you have to-dos, which is your personal, as a user, list of things you want to work on. But there's also checklists, which are more team-oriented. You can share them with people in the team, and typically they are in one project, so everyone in the project will be able to see them. And checklists can be used for example, high-level planning. So if you want to start working on something, you can quickly write down things like request images from design, integrate images in websites. I can move those up and down. I can select them. I can reorder them, make them sub items and so on, just using keyboard shortcuts. So to quickly write down a high level overview of things we should be doing. So for example, if you're in a meeting and you're planning things, you can use those checklists to quickly jot down whatever you want to work on. You'll also see that the checklists here have some things that are links and have some more information and have some people assigned to them. Those are checklist items that have been converted into an issue. So checklists are really high level, just bullet lists and tasks that you can complete. There's also issues, and you can create them from checklists. And the issues are really more details about a certain task that you want to work on. So let's go to issues. And you'll see that there's an entire list of things that this team should be working on at some point. Let's dive into one of these and look at what is there. So for every issue, you will see that there's a title. There can be a description as well. So let's add a description here. Create a 404 page for our application and save that. You can add attachments, you can add reactions as well. So for example, if this is something that you feel should be done, you can upvote that and people can see reactions there as well. Issues also have someone who is assigned to them. So in this case, Allison is assigned to this one. There can be a due date. So if you want this by tomorrow, you can set that as a due date or remove it again. You can set the status. So this one is currently open, not started yet, but if it's in progress, you can of course set the status there as well. You can add it to a checklist. So if it's something that you want to add to a checklist in the opposite direction, you can do that as well. So all of those things are integrated together. Now, one thing that is maybe interesting is that issues are also part of chats. So I'm currently working from the context of an issue, and I can say, for example, to my colleague here, Heather, is this something you can pick up? Send that as a reaction to this issue, and this issue history is going to be saved. But everyone else or everyone who is mentioned will see a new chat notification. And chats are another thing in Space that you can work with. They are the place where you communicate with people. I'll cover a little bit of that later on, but I first want to mention that, for example, on this issue, my colleague here will see this in the chat because maybe she does not need, or typically you don't need the full context of the issue. You just see create a 404 page and she can say, sure, we'll reassign. And then start working on it, for example, and change whoever is the assignee and then switch to the actual issue and assign it to herself. The fact that this is a chat also means that it's really easy. If someone has a small question about a certain thing, you don't have to drop everything you are doing and navigate to the actual issue at hand. You can just use the chat, reply from there, and the channel will eventually drop out of the list of recently used channels in the chat as well. While we're in chat, let's maybe cover that one and then continue with software development afterwards. So in the chat, you will see issues. Code reviews will be opened in the chat as well. And of course, you can also just communicate in the channels that you are communicating. So for example, there's a software development channel here where everyone in the software development team can chat about things and work together. Chats can be public, so everyone in your organization can join a chat, or they can be private, where just certain people can join that chat and start working on it. In a chat, you can add individual people, but again, also teams. So if you have a chat software development for the software development team, add the team, I would say, because then if someone joins that team later on, they will also automatically become part of this chat and start working on it. Inside of a chat, you can have threads. So you'll see that there's a thread here as well. And threads can also be pinned. So if this is a discussion that is ongoing and you want to quickly be able to switch back and forth between the actual channel and a specific thread, you can pin that channel, and you'll see on the channel list on the left. And for some reason, this is not working. Great. Probably because I selected something wrong. Anyway, the idea is that you can quickly switch between certain chats and certain threads that are available. In the chats, you see that you also have filters for the channels that you're part of. You can also do direct messages with people. And here's one example of having all information in space. So Arjen is on vacation. So if I want to start chatting with that person, you can immediately see that this person is on vacation and not available. By the way, you'll also see for profiles in the company that there's a description of what they do and what their role is. So Space also generates that description for you, so you can start working with that. And if you want more information about a person, you can also look at the card here, maybe go to the profile, even look at people's agenda, look at what teams they are in, etc., etc. But anyway, I digressed a little bit, so I'll go back to software development teams now. So back to our projects. Before we do software development, maybe one more on issues, because I know that's a question that often comes up. Issues are a list, but issues can also be a board. So if you need a planning board with issues, you can add those issues onto a board. And during a stand-up meeting, for example, move things to done or move things back to open and move things around essentially and do your planning using such a board. All right. Software development. So every project can have, doesn't have to have, but can have 0, 1, or multiple repositories that people can start working on in terms of source codes. So you'll see again that these are my favorite repositories. On the left here, you can look at all of the repositories. If a project has multiple repos, usually you're not working on all of them at the same time. So what you can do is, again, favorite those that you typically work with, and they will then show up on the homepage, and they will also show up in the left-hand sidebar here. So everything you favorite will be added or removed on the left here. So it's easily customized again to show what is relevant to you. Quick side note here, probably if you are doing software development, you probably also are already using a Git hosting somewhere. If you want to start using Space and you create a repository inside of a project, what you can of course do is start from scratch and create an empty repository and start working with that. But also if you already have something on Bitbucket or Azure DevOps or whatever you are using, you can also migrate your repository into Space using this radio button here and get everything into Space. Also, if you're not sure yet, if you're just test driving Space and you want to be able to use the original repository, but also start using Space, you can also mirror a repository, and this will be a bidirectional synchronization. Inside of JetBrains, for example, we are using this one for a lot of repos, because we have a lot of open source projects that are on GitHub, but all of our developers internally use Space to commit to those repositories, but then Space will synchronize everything with GitHub. And if someone opens a pull request on GitHub, that pull request will also end up inside of Space as well. So just a small side note there. Let's dive into one of the repositories we have here. So as a software developer, what do you care about? Of course, all of the changes that have gone in, and you'll see a list of all of the commits that have gone into your Git repository. For every commit, you'll be able to see the description and what it is about, and you'll also be able to see all of the changes that went in. And you can click those changes and actually look at the source code of things that were added inside, inside that commits. Now, of course, commits is typically, well, you may be interested in that as a developer, but it's typically not the main view that you will use to work with Git repositories. Typically, what you will do is either use the files tab here and browse the repository and see what is there. Or like Roman asked at the beginning of this webinar, you can clone this using any Git tool and start working with this repository by just cloning this using Visual Studio or IntelliJ or whatever IDE that you may be using. If you use the file browser in the Space browser here, you will see that by default, if you click Files, by default, Space shows you the README file. The reason for that is that readme.md is sort of an unspoken rule in the software development community as being the file in your repository that contains information about how to set up your machine, how to start working with the source code that is in here. So Space decided to automatically show that as a nicely formatted document on how you can get started, what is the architecture, where to find more information, etc. Another thing that you will find is that while you can have comments inside of your actual code, you can also add comments inside of Space. So you'll see these comments icons here, a green one and a blue one. For some files in this repository, it looks like people have been adding discussions on certain lines of code that are there. So very often when someone new joins a team or something is code that was only touched a couple of years ago and nobody knows what it's about anymore, you can start discussing that, and I can ask my colleagues, for example, do you know what this is? And then someone can respond to that and so on inside of this code. Now, the interesting thing is that your entire team will be able to see those items in code. So this is a discussion about what this is. And at some point, someone can chime in and add another reply and start chatting about this as well. But you can also have some other things where, for example, someone can document how to do something. I think there's going to be one in there. No, in there. Yeah, there it is. Where one of my colleagues essentially said, look, if you want to use a different server engine in this specific repository, you can do that by adding this as a snippet to get started. So this is not something that should be part of the source code that you're actually shipping, but it's part of the living documentation that your software project might need. And that's what you will see here. At some point, people, of course, will start editing code. And as I mentioned, you can clone using any Git client. If you are using JetBrains IDE like IntelliJ, what you can do is, and I'll zoom in a little bit in a second, you can get from VCS, install the Space plugin, log into your Space repo, and what you will see in there is that you can get a list of all of the projects that you are working with and that you can access and can start writing code with. You can select one and just clone it to your machine. So I'll take this one and clone it to my desktop, and we can then open it immediately from Space. So that's an easy shortcut, so you don't have to remember the URL, you don't have to configure anything, just log in from the IDE and start cloning. So there's a plugin for IntelliJ and for all of the other JetBrains IDEs. I know someone in the community has been working on a Visual Studio Code plugin as well to do a couple of these things. And yeah, there's a couple of other applications that you can use together with Space as well. So while this loads in IntelliJ, I'll maybe quickly talk about that as well. So if you are using Space, and regardless of whether you are a software developer or have a different role in the company, you will find that you can download the Space applications as well. So under the help menu here, there's downloads. If you have Mac OS X or you're using Windows or you're on Linux, you can actually download the Space application as well. So I'm using the browser, but you can use the application as well. If you want to access chats, for example, from your mobile device, you can do that as well by installing the mobile application for Space. In the meanwhile, this is where my code is, and I can start developing on this, so I can start making changes edit this specific file, make changes, and push them out to space. And at some point, whenever I'm done working, I will probably start creating a code review. So what I can do is create a code review that says, for example, I made some chat application updates. I want to merge them from my branch into the main branch that we have, and people will be able to see the changes that are in there. So this commit is just these changes. And again, you will see these comment icons because inside of this review, people have been reviewing, giving suggestions, maybe even logging different issues from here, because that's another thing that you can do. You can quickly create an issue for something that you should be doing in the future. And they've been chatting about this, and I can work with that. Now, again, I'm using the browser here, but since yesterday, actually, you can use Space code reviews inside of the IDE as well. So if you're a software developer, you don't even have to leave the Space application. You can just work with Space from within the IDE and look at that same code review, and all of the chat notifications that you saw in the browser are also part of the code review here in Space. Right, at some point, you will merge your code back to that main branch. And then what's going to happen? Typically, what will happen is that software is compiled and you run tests on it, and maybe you publish some artifact somewhere. Now, all of that is in Space as well. So let's go to the jobs here. And you'll see that Space will, for all of the applications that I have, will be able to build the application. So this project has 5 different CI/CD or automation scripts available, where you can build the application and where you can look at what happened during a build. So you'll see that tests have been run. All of those tests have been successful, so that's a good thing. You can look at the entire build log as well, see whatever was in there, if that's something that is needed to troubleshoot a specific build. Some other things that you will see is that a build may also produce artifacts. So whenever the chat application is built, this one publishes a Maven artifact. Imagine you're building an application and you want to build a Docker artifact, for example. You can do that in Space as well using automation, and those two can be stored in Space. So Space comes with package repositories, where you can host your Docker container images, Maven packages, NuGet packages, or NPM packages. One thing of note here is that the container registry by default is going to be private, again, only for people with permissions inside your company. And of course, you can give certain people access. You can block access for other people in the company. But imagine you are a software company and you're shipping software to the public. You can also provide public access to a repository. And inside JetBrains, we again use this also to give you access to some of the repositories that we built, some of the software that we built, and you can just download it from our Space instance directly. For every artifact in package repositories, you can see all of the versions that are there. You can see the files that are part of it, and you can typically also see where a certain file came from. So for example, this HTTP bin application was created by this build. So again, you get traceability as well, going back to the build, and you can see how it was created, what the build log was for this specific one, and you can get more information there as well. This was really, in a nutshell, what is there for software developers. There's a lot of details that probably matter. Since we have a little bit of a mixed audience, I don't want to go too deep into the software development flow, but remember, there's source code repositories, you can do issue tracking, you can build whatever is there, you can deploy whatever is there, and you can host the packages of whatever you are creating in your software development flow as well. All right, what else is in Space? I think I already mentioned that chats are there, and you can have chats with multiple people. You can have channels. You can do direct messages with people. You can create conversations with multiple people that are private as well. There's threads. You can look at issues and so on. Maybe something interesting to note is we already saw that if you comment on an issue in a project, that will show up as a chat channel in Space as well. You'll also see that on the homepage here, there's this blog post about the new Mars office that just opened, and people can comment on this as well. You will see in the chat again that a blog post can also be part of a chat channel. And if someone responds to a blog post that I wrote, you'll be able to see the responses there and start working with them from within the chat. So you don't have to click around all the time to go back to that blog post and work on it. What else is there? So in chats, you of course see all of the messages that are there and the things that you can work on. And let's maybe go to the software development project here. I mentioned the to-do lists, and you can add blog posts or issues and so on to a chat as well. To the to-do lists, you can add chat messages to the to-do list too. So typically what will happen is that some of your colleagues will ask you a question, and that question is not a simple yes or no question, but typically it's something that you will have to start working on at some point, or maybe have to spend half an hour on researching and then getting a response. So what you can do is also add a message to your to-do lists so that you don't forget about it. You can then continue your work, and then at the end of the day or somewhere in the afternoon, you can look at your to-do list and you can see, oh yeah, there was this message that I should be working on. Click on it and return to that message that we just added to the to-do list. If it's really, again, a task that you should be working on, you can make this an issue in a specific project, or add it to your calendar as a meeting and start working on it at a specific point in time during the day. I think that's a nice bridge to go through the calendar as well. So I mentioned on the homepage here, you have the calendar, and you can see that you can add absences and meetings. You can do that from the homepage, or again, you can do that from the calendar here. And for example, in the week view, say that somewhere today, I want to do something. Meetings can have a title. Let's say follow up with TVG. I can add rooms, I can add a description. Questions, for example, might be a good description. So you can add a title and a description, and you can, of course, because it's a meeting, you can, of course, add participants. Participants, typically, Space will show you the people that you are following and the teams that you are following, because very often you don't want to immediately start adding marketing here. So the list that you will see by default is the people that you favorited and the teams that you favorited to give you easy access to those that you work with. Of course, if you need someone from the marketing team, you can search for them. If you need a specific person, I can also look for them and add them as a participant. Let's add Hadi here. And you'll see that we now added that one person. You'll see their availability, and we can schedule our meeting and see if someone is available. I know that Aryan, for example, on the team was unavailable. And here you will see that this person is on vacation on this day. So again, adding more information into Space will give you a richer experience in that I can now see that this person is on vacation, and I should probably schedule this for somewhere next week. I can add people. I can see when they are busy, so you'll quickly see whatever is happening. And that's at this point, I should not be scheduling something, and you can see what people are doing. I can also add teams. So for example, I can add the software development team, and you will see that everything was updated, and all of the people who are part of the software development team are now grouped inside of this thing, so you can quickly see that as well. Now, why am I showing this? Because this is where having more information becomes again valuable. If you have multiple offices, if you have seats or rooms in your office and meeting rooms in your office, you can add that information into Space. And if I now add rooms, you will see that automatically Space suggests all of the meeting rooms that are closest to all people that I added as participants to my meeting. Some other stuff about meetings, you can have single occurrence meetings, you can have multiple recurring meetings. If you have people in multiple time zones, you can also automatically adjust for daylight savings time in a specific time zone. You can have meetings that are free. So you can have something in your agenda, but that is not marking you as busy. You can also set the privacy for meetings. So by default, non-participants can view, so everyone can view who is in a meeting and what is going on. If you want to have a private meeting, you can, of course, specify that as well. If you want to have a meeting that other people can join at some point in the future, you can do this as well. So for example, if you have, I know, a team meeting that people can join but don't have to join, you can set the privacy to non-participants can join. Create a meeting, then copy the link into a chat channel, and people will be able to click join if they want to be part of that meeting as well. One question that will probably come up is I already use Google App Engine or Google Apps or Office 365. Is it going to be possible to synchronize my calendar with those systems? The answer to that is a yes. It's not there yet, but it is coming to Space. So I hope I already tackled one of the potential questions there. Right, so that's the calendar. That's all there. I can go through it. I can look at meetings. I can open them. If there's a profile in there somewhere, for example, this Hadi person, I can look at their schedule as well. I can look at their schedule from the profile page, or if I want more information, I can also open the calendar there and look at their agenda. For profiles, again, more information is always better in Space. So if you look at the software development team and we want to figure out where this Aryan person is located, you can also upload office plans. Probably in these COVID times, not very handy, but still, I hope at some point we'll be able to go to offices again and you can show the office plan and look at what is in there and where everyone is seated. You can also look at some personal data, what teams people are in, and so on. Now, there's a couple more things that are probably interesting if you start working with Space, but I'll not go through them because the next thing I want to go to is the team directory. So I'm looking at a profile right now, and I can get information about one profile. And I think I already showed you that you can also look at what the software development team is about and who is in there and what their calendar is, for example. But this all is part of that team directory that is in Space. So if you go to the root here, if you go to Teams, you will see that you can see that our company currently has 40 members. You can see all of the people who are in there, whether they're available or not, or what their time zones are and things like that. You can look at a feed of who joined when, what roles people are currently in, and so on. You can look at all members in a list and search for someone. Or you can look at the calendar for the entire company here. So you can see that some people had a birthday, there were some holidays there, and someone is on vacation in the company. Now, this team directory, of course, this is all nice to see, and it's nice to see that people changed roles and so on, but it serves a purpose. If you want to speak to someone in marketing, for example, how will you figure out who is in marketing and who to talk to? Well, typically in the team directory, you can filter. Let's pick marketing here. You can see that this is a team that handles all of the marketing for products and services. You can see who is there. I am located in the Copenhagen office, so it would be nice to find someone who is also in the same location. I can click that location and I can immediately see who I can start chatting with and bother with a question that I may have for marketing. Right. This is, of course, filtering and just exploring what is there. Very often, and people using our IDs will know, very often you just want to search for something. Space also comes with search, and search is very powerful in Space, and it allows you to search for people, for teams, for locations, for chat messages, even for things inside of your project. So what I can do is, for example, search for software development. And I can see that there's a software development team, but also a software development chat channel. Now, if I add chat, for example, you will see that search is smart enough to know that I mean that I'm searching for something containing software in the chat channels. If I search for software team, for example, you'll see that the search again gives you a powerful search that knows that you're searching for a team. Another thing that I can do is if I search for example, Ktor, that project that we had, I can press tab and then jump into that and then start searching inside of that project. So again, it's really easy to find, for example, let's search that Ktor repo, because again, search is contextual and will know about what I want, and I can jump into that repository. And then inside of that repository, I can start searching for files even, and then immediately jump to a specific file that is there. So I didn't even have to click around. If I get familiar with how the search works, it's easy to find anything that is in Space. Also, by the way, there are some other shortcuts. If you're a shortcut lover, if you press the question mark, you will see all of the shortcuts that are there. So if you want to quickly go to chats, for example, you can press GC, and let's do that, GC, and you will go to chats. So it's really easy to navigate around Space, just a side note. All right, maybe one additional thing that I want to talk about is about integrating. So I hope at least that you realize that Space has a lot of modules out of the box that make it possible for you to do a lot of things that a lot of companies are doing. But of course, Space will never be 100% fit for every single organization on this planet or on other planets for that matter. So you probably want to integrate your existing systems with Space, or you may have existing applications or other applications that you want to bring into Space. Just want to give this as a closing note. Space has an API that you can work with, and the API for developers gives you access to everything you can do through the user interface. So imagine that you have a build server, you're using Jenkins or TeamCity or some other system, and when a build fails, you want to send a message to a chat channel in Space. Well, if you go to the HTTP API playgrounds, look at chat, for example, and find the send message method here, you will already know that you can send a message to a channel. That can be, for example, the software development channel. And then you can start building your channel as a text and say, hello, for example. Let's add an emoji. And on the right-hand side here, you will see how you can integrate with that and send a message into Space. The opposite direction is also possible. So Space comes with webhooks. For example, if someone updates an issue or adds a message to an issue or changes whoever is assigned to an issue or something like that, you can also subscribe to those events. And if you have another application that requires that information, Space will send it to you if you need it. And with that, I think we can probably end the demo and open the floor for some questions.
Very good presentation. Thank you, Martin. This is very cool. I have one question also. You mentioned about integration. Let's say some of the users and companies using Azure Active Directory or AD Active Directory for users' credentials. So is it possible that they will log into Space using those?
Absolutely, yes. So I didn't really go into that. I looked at Space from the user perspective, but if you look at Space from the administrator perspective, this module here, administration, you'll see that for your Space organization, you can customize a lot of things like themes, like locations, equipment, and so on, but also, like you asked, authentication modules. So if you already have Active Directory, for example, and you don't want to use the username password that is the standard way of authenticating with Space, you can configure an integration with your Active Directory or Azure Active Directory even, and have single sign-on between all of those systems to quickly jump into Space using the same credentials.
So there is plenty of possibilities to create the users inside or sync users inside Space, so they will use same user password as they usually use for their services.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So actually inside of JetBrains, we do that. We are heavy users of Google App Engine or Google Apps actually for authentication. So inside JetBrains, we use the Google authentication to be able to access Space inside the company.
And also you mentioned that there is a desktop and web version of Space, and you said that there is a Mac application, and there's Android possibility to install on my Android?
Yes, absolutely. So if you go to the help here, downloads, you'll see that there's a desktop application that works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. There's an iOS application that you can install, and there's also an Android application that you can install on your device. Now, of course, the apps are, at least the desktop app can do everything, but all of the other things are more focused on what you are doing. So typically you won't be doing a full code review, for example, on your Android cell phone. So the apps is just chats and calendar and team directory, but you get access to most of the things that are relevant on the specific form factor of the device that you're working with.
So this means if I'm out of the office, I'm using Android or any other platform, I can see what is happening at this moment. Yep. And what is a particular team doing now, and what is next steps?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll just open the Android App Store here, so you get some screenshots of what the app looks like. So you get chats in there. You can do search as well. So you can search for people, look at their profile, see who's on vacation, things like that. The to-do lists are there as well. So it's easy if you're on the road and someone calls you and you have to quickly write down that you have to follow up with this person who just gave you a phone call. You can add that to your to-do lists on the go. There's a dashboard with whatever is in your calendar, your to-dos, your absences, the teams that you're following, etc. So yes, the apps are definitely there.
Okay, it's very interesting. Do any our participants, maybe they have questions. So if you want to ask, you can unmute yourself, or you can write directly in chat.
Hello.
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 I have a question regarding the chat functionality. Do you have, or are you planning to have, any video call, screen sharing, etc. functionality in the chat app?
That's a very good question. Yes, we are working on that. So the idea is that we'll have two things. So first of all, I mentioned that the calendar will be able to synchronize with Office 365 and with Google Apps. Typically, if you already have Office 365, you also have Teams to do calls and etc. So the idea is that in chats, you will be able to click the icon here and start a Teams call or a Google Meet call or whatever you are using. If you're not using any of those, or you just prefer to stay in Space itself, we're also going to add Space phone calls inside the product, so you don't have to use any of the others.
Okay, and although this software seems to be really company and team oriented, can I invite any people outside the organization to contribute to projects and etc.?
That's a very complex answer. The answer is yes and no. So yes, you can currently invite other people into your Space organization. The issue is that they will get all of the default privileges and they can see all of the projects that are there. So once you do that, you have to make sure that you trim down their access level. We are working on external participants as well, where it's going to be the exact opposite, where you can invite an external partner and give them access to just issues in one specific project, for example. So that is coming. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
But do you have any idea regarding the timeline of this external part?
As soon as we can. So I think once finished, I think the current goal is to have this by summer this year. But then again, sometimes things slip a little bit, but definitely this year.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Anyone wants to ask question? Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. I wanted to ask about this space solution. There is a possibility to use it freely. If you ask from TVG, you can register yourself trial version and try by yourself. There is such possibility. If you want so, you can write us. I will leave contacts. And we can continue after this webinar, and you can question us directly.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, if you want more information, definitely contact Roman from TVG. There's also jetbrains.com/space where you'll find some additional videos and what is there. So I didn't go into full detail on all of the different aspects of space, but if you want to have more, I'm pretty sure that TVG can help you, or our website if you just want to explore and browse a little bit.
Okay, so there is quiet inside our webcast. So maybe you can tell us about other features and other stuff. There is a possibility to come like integration with third-party services like Slack or Zapier?
Yes, yeah. So maybe for the integration story, we are not yet there. So right now I showed you that there's the HTTP API playground where you can build your own integration. There's webhooks that you can build your own integration with as well. The next step, and that's also going to be something for, I hope, in the coming months, is that we're going to have a marketplace as well, where some of our partners can give you access to their solutions that can then integrate with your space organization as well, or vice versa. If you are a service vendor or you have an application that you want to share with all of our space organizations that exist, you can also submit your application to the marketplace. That said, on our website, you will see that there's an extensibility page, and you will find on that extensibility page that, for example, we already have an SDK for building your own applications with Kotlin or .NET. And we also have an integration with Zapier. Not sure who is using it. I'm using it to do some integrations. So the idea there is that, for example, if you do something in a third-party system, you can use Zapier to then respond to that event and do something using the Space API. And for example, if you upload a picture on your mobile phone camera that synchronizes to your Google Drive, then you can use Zapier to see that that file is there and upload it to a chat or to an issue, for example, in Space. Maybe one more, since we have a couple of minutes left. And if there's questions, again, feel free to ask questions, because that's always nice to handle them. But let's maybe start with one of the things that we actually started building Space with, and that was those blog posts. So I mentioned that blog posts can be global to the entire organization or just focused to one specific office. You will also see that you can add events to a blog post. So this particular event has finished already, but if you create a new blog post, you can essentially write about what is going to happen and also attach an event that people can then join or leave or whatever. So a nice example there is inside of JetBrains. Every couple of months, we have a town hall where all of the company gets together to share news and to share updates and to share whatever is available. You can also ask questions to all of the different teams. We typically announce them as a blog post, where in the blog post you write what it's about, where you can post questions, what the agenda is going to be. But then also, if you want to join, the event is attached to it. So you can say, yes, I'll be there. And again, thanks to the Space calendar integration, that event will then automatically be added to your calendar. So you can join at the day the event actually happens.
Okay, so we see that lots of information we had in this webinar. I think people need to think and understand what it is, and I see that this is a good project. The Space has lots of possibilities. It's lots to offer for the teamwork, and also to developers who are team working and doing some project. It is pretty clear, understandable how to see who is doing what role is given to each developer or each team, and who is in place, who is busy or in vacation. So this is all the that we see from the Space, and it's also possible to use it from Mac, from Android, and you can install it as a desktop version and use it from a web application. So it's all from the Space, and Space is good, is great, and it is growing. I see that lots of features are upcoming, and will be more in the future. So at this point, what I'm giving the possibility, you can ask from TVG. I sent some contacts in the chat, and then you can contact and write, just give me access or let me try this Space, so we can help you to deploy and understand how to start with this Space project without any commitment. So you just can try it and use it. Please ask. So Marty, thank you for your interesting webinar.
Thank you for having me today. Yeah.
Yes. If someone didn't participate, we have a webinar recording. Afterwards, we can share it and share shortly. Please ask your questions if you need after this webinar. The webinar is concluded, so thank you, everyone. If you are likely to see more information about this, you can just put a plus in the chat. And see you later on other webinars from TVG. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.